Architected comprehensive video script honoring Satmar family traditions. The night before my 11th child was born, I cooked a pot of cholent. It was a Tuesday. There is no reason to cook cholent on a Tuesday, but I needed something to do with my hands, so I stood at the stove and I cooked. By the 11th time, I knew every sign. I knew how my body felt. I knew what was coming. I knew how long it would take. I knew exactly what I would need in the hours ahead. There was no fear in me that night, no surprise, only a kind of deep, quiet readiness, like standing at a door you have walked through before. You know what is on the other side, and you walk through anyway, because you want to. People ask me that question all the time. 11 children. Were you ever scared? Were you ever unprepared? Did you ever think, not again? I tell them the truth. Not once. Not one of them was a surprise. I grew up Satmar. That is the name of our community. Satmar Hasidic Jews. We are one of the most observant Jewish communities in the world. We live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, mostly, and in Kiryas Joel in upstate New York. Tens of thousands of us, a whole world inside a world. In our community, life is organized by halakha, Jewish religious law. It is not only about prayer, it touches everything. What you eat, what you wear, how you rest, how you build a family. Every part of life has a shape to it, a structure, and that structure comes from Hashem. One of the foundations of that structure is family. The Torah commands us to be fruitful and multiply. That is not a suggestion. It is a mitzvah, a commandment. And in the Satmar world, we take commandments seriously. When a young couple marries, the expectation is understood without needing to be said. You welcome what Hashem sends. You do not make a plan and say, we will have 2, we will stop at 3. You open the door, and you keep it open. I know that sounds strange to people who grew up outside my world. In the outside world, people control. They decide. They calculate. I understand that. It is not wrong for them. It is their life. But it is not my life. For me, and for every woman I grew up with, a child was not a decision you made. It was a gift you received, a neshomi, a soul, sent to this world, to this family, for a reason only Hashem fully knows. My mother had 8 children. Her mother had 9. Her mother before her more. Large families were not unusual in our world. They were normal. They were how you built a community, how you kept something alive across generations. And there was something deeper than that, something I understood only when I got older. Our community lost so much. In Europe, in the war, we lost almost everything. Families, whole towns, a way of life that took centuries to build. Children in that context are not just children. They are continuation. They are proof that we are still here, that we survived, that Hashem did not forget us. Every baby born into a Satmar family carries that, the future of something very old and very precious. I want to tell you about a morning from when I was maybe 8 years old. My mama was expecting again. I do not remember which number. There had always been a baby, or a baby coming, for as long as I could remember. It was simply how things were in our home. One morning I woke up and the apartment was very quiet. That was unusual. We lived in a small apartment in Williamsburg, 8 people in it. Quiet was rare. I went to the kitchen. My Taddy was sitting at the table alone. His siddur, his prayer book, was open in front of him. But he was not reading. He was just sitting, very still, his hands flat on the table, looking at the wall. I asked him what was wrong. He turned and looked at me. He smiled, a slow, calm smile. He said, "Nothing is wrong, Meidla. Your mama went to the hospital last night. By tonight, we will have a new blessing. Not a baby, a blessing." That was his word. I sat down next to him at the table, and we waited together. I remember the light coming through the kitchen window, pale early morning light, the sound of the street beginning outside, the smell of the coffee he had made, and the quiet, which in our apartment was almost a sound of its own. By that evening, my little sister Cheney was home. I remember how my Taddy held her the first time. He was a big man, my Taddy, big hands, wide shoulders. But holding her, he was so careful, so still. He looked at her face for a long time without saying a single word. I asked him what he was thinking. He said, "I am counting her fingers." I did not understand then that this was something all parents do, check that everything arrived whole. I only understood that he was paying very close attention to this tiny person who had just come into our home, like she was the most important thing he had ever been given to look at. That image stayed with me my whole life. Every time I was expecting my own child, I came back to that kitchen, that pale light, my Taddy and his prayer book, his big hands and his stillness and his word, blessing. And I felt the same thing every time, readiness, gratitude, and something like awe that Hashem trusted me again. I married my husband Liebisch when I was 20 years old. We met through a shidduch. A matchmaker introduced us. We met a handful of times. We spoke. We each asked the questions you ask, and then we decided. That is how it works in our world. You do not date for years. You do not move in together. You learn what you need to learn, and then you choose. And if the choice is right, you know it without needing a very long time. I knew. We chose each other. And then the building began. Our first child came about 14 months after the wedding, a boy, Yosef Yitzchak, named for Liebisch's grandfather. I remember the first time I held him. The whole room went very quiet for a moment, like the world was pausing to let something important happen. Then came another and another. Year after year the family grew. Some years the children were close together, some years with more space between, but always growing. By the time I was expecting my 5th child, I knew this life from the inside completely. I knew how to cook for a large table. I knew how to put 3 children to sleep while nursing a 4th. I knew how to stretch 1 chicken into a meal for 9. I knew which child needed quiet when they were upset, and which one needed to be held. You learn. You adapt. You grow into the life you are living. People sometimes say to me, "Were you ever overwhelmed?" And I want to answer honestly, yes. There were nights I was so tired I could not think straight. There were weeks where one child was sick, and then another one got sick, and I did not sleep a full night for nearly 2 weeks. There was one year where 3 of my children had a very bad illness at the same time. That was a very hard year. Liebisch and I look back at that year and we just shake our heads. But here is what I always say. Tired is not the same as lost. I was tired many times. I was never lost. I always knew exactly where I was. I was in my kitchen. I was in my community. I was doing exactly what I was put here to do. And knowing that, really knowing it in your bones, that is not a small thing. My Shabbos table seated 12 people when all the children were home. Liebisch at one end, me at the other, the children in between. And every Friday night I would stand at the window and say the candle blessing, and then I would look down that table and I would count the faces. The word I keep coming back to is fullness. That is the closest I can get in English, fullness. I want to tell you about something harder to talk about. There was a woman in my community, a little younger than me. She and her husband had 4 children, and she loved them more than she could say. But after the 4th, something happened. A darkness came over her, a heaviness that would not lift no matter what she did. The doctors were very clear. Her health could not carry another pregnancy, not then. She needed rest. She needed quiet. She needed time. In our world, when something like that happens, you do not decide alone. You go to your rabbi. You explain the situation. You ask. The rabbi learns the details and gives guidance based on halakha. There is room in Jewish law for a woman's health. There has always been room. Life comes before almost everything else in halakha. But it is not a simple conversation. It is not a quiet, private decision you make at home between yourself and your husband. It involves the rabbi. It involves your family. It is held in a way by the community. She told me once that it was the hardest period of her life. She loved being a mother. She loved her community. She did not want to be different. She did not want to need an exception. She just needed to survive. And needing to survive felt to her like a failure, which broke my heart to hear. I sat with her many times in those years. I brought her food. I took her children on Shabbos so she could rest. I did not give her advice. I am not a rabbi. I am a neighbor. And what a neighbor can give is presence. That is sometimes the most important thing. She is still in our community. She came through it. Her children are grown now. She has grandchildren. She is a Bubba many times over, and she is whole. But I think about what she carried, the love for her children on one side, the need to survive on the other, the community that holds you, and the community that also has expectations. Both of those things are real, and sometimes they pull in opposite directions. I will not pretend otherwise. I want you to understand this life as it is, not only the beautiful parts. The weight is also real. My youngest is 31 years old now. He has 3 little ones of his own. When all my grandchildren come together for the holidays, my apartment is chaos. A beautiful, loud, impossible chaos. Children running, someone is always crying, someone else is always laughing at the same time. There is never enough room at the table. We make room. I sit sometimes in the middle of all of it and I just watch. I think about each of my 11 children. I think about the morning each of them arrived. I think about how Liebisch held each one, how he counted each one's fingers, just like my Tatty counted my little sister's fingers all those years ago. the same gesture, 2 generations apart, in the same community, in the same faith. Not one of my 11 children was an accident. Not one was a surprise. Every single one was a door I walked through with my eyes open, trusting that Hashem knew what was on the other side. That is not naivety. I want to be clear about that. I am not a woman who did not know what she was agreeing to. I am a woman who knew exactly what she was agreeing to, and who said yes again and again, 11 times. I am 68 years old. I have been married to Liebisch for 48 years. I have buried my parents and 2 of my sisters. I have sat with women in grief. I have held sick grandchildren through long, dark nights. I have lived a very full life, and the thread that runs through all of it, through the hard and the beautiful and everything in between, is this. I never felt like my life was an accident. I never felt like I just ended up somewhere without meaning. I felt chosen for this life, chosen for this family, chosen for this kitchen and this table and these faces every Friday night. Not everyone has that feeling, I know that. I have seen people who do not have it, and I feel for them, genuinely. But I have it, and I am grateful every day. When my children ask me, Mommy, would you do it all again? Every single one. Not one was a surprise. Next week, I want to take you somewhere you have probably never been. The mikveh, the ritual bath. One of the most sacred and private parts of a Satmar woman's life. I want to explain what it is, what it means, what it felt like the very first time I walked through that door as a young bride. It is not what the outside world imagines. I know what people imagine when they hear the word. I have heard the questions. I have seen the faces. Come back next week, and I will tell you the truth of it. My name is Miriam, and there is so much more to tell.